name is Veronica Jimenez, and I am here to introduce SHERESE Francis, what I would call a talented and passionate young woman. I would use to describe her: sage, mentor, writer, poet, and educator. SHERESE Francis, I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you for having me, Veronica.
I just wanted to ask you a few questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself and yourself as an artist.
Well, basically, I'm a writer. I'm a poet. I write what I call spiritual poetry, mythological poetry. I also write speculative fiction, which is like science fiction and fantasy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. I'm also a blogger. I have my own blog called Futuristically Ancient, which explores Afrofuturism through the African diaspora.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were your earliest influences as a writer or poet? What gave you your start?
I think my parents had a huge influence on me because growing up, they always bought me books.
Okay.
Yeah, so I always had books in the house to read. I remember having the Collier's encyclopedia set with like additional like storybooks that came from it, so I always had books to read. I remember having a children's picture book that had lines from different African American poets. And I still have that book.
And what's your favorite?
I always say my favorite was Nikki Giovanni's Ego Tripping poem. I loved how that poem celebrated Black womanhood as kind of the founder of the world, in a sense.
I can go for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it gave me confidence at a time where I didn't feel like I had that confidence. And so I always carried that poem with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's your blogging?
Well, right now I kind of taken a back step from it because I've been so busy working on my other projects, like my mobile library.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. In a recent conversation that we had, you mentioned a pop-up library. How did that come about? I mean, I was really blown away by that.
Yeah, so it was in 2016. I was still doing the Queens Book Festival at that time, and through doing the Queens Book Festival, I found out a lot about literary scenes in Queens, and I came to find out there weren't many bookstores in Queens. Now we have 3, but at that time it was only like 1. And so being from Southeast Queens, we have none, so I was like, I wanted to create something that was a platform for the literary artists in the area. So at the time, I was part of No Longer Empty's Jamico Exchange exhibition they were doing there.
What's that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so No Longer Empty is a organization that does pop-up exhibitions throughout the city.
Okay.
And so they were doing one in Jamaica on the 165th Street Mall.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in Queens, yeah.
And so they wanted to have a day where they had a mobile library or book collections, and I was thinking, why not start one of my own? I had gotten several books from the Queens Book Festivals, a lot of them from Southeast Queens writers. So I decided to collect the books I had, and that was the start of my mobile library, J Expressions.
And how was it? How was the first?
It was great. It inspired me in a lot of ways because I actually had like 2 boys come and sit with us and reading, and they were fascinated by the books. They were sitting there looking at the covers, reading through the books, and I thought, like, this is something we definitely need.
Yeah, I guess they could relate. Yeah. That's really great. And how do you engage your people in the project? How do you engage the community?
So I do pop-ups at random events like festivals, like Harvest Festival, or I've done it with the African Poetry Theater at their Kwanzaa Day. In October, I actually got a grant from Queens Council on the Arts to do a series of events. Yeah, and it was weekly events in October at York College's Chapel of the Three Sisters. And it was centered around art and health. and it was called Riting Remedy, with the writing, the W was in parentheses.
And how did you get people to come to your shows? How did you advertise?
I had flyers, and of course I shared on social media and my websites as well. I also had a newsletter, so I was sharing it there.
Well, I think that's a wonderful project. You know, tell me about your collaboration with bringing the artists together in Southeast Queens, because I thought that was a really great idea too. You're a busy woman.
Yeah, got to keep busy.
Yeah.
So I'm actually part of an alliance called the Southeast Queens Artists Alliance.
Okay.
And that was actually started by a group of visual artists in Southeast Queens. They were originally part of Queens Council on the Arts Artist Peer Circle.
Okay.
And they decided they wanted to keep going afterwards, so they decided to form the alliance. And then a few months later, I joined on because I like them, and it felt like literary artists didn't really have a platform in the neighborhood to really showcase their work. So we decided, them being visual artists, multimedia artists, interdisciplinary artists, to like join with the literary artists in the community and create a platform for ourselves.
Now, why are you in Southeast Queens, and why are you not expanding to other boroughs in New York, or are you?
Well, like, as a writer, I kind of had to go to other boroughs, going to Brooklyn or Manhattan to, like, different salons, literary salons they have, or workshops they had. I had no choice because we didn't really have much in Queens. And that's part of the driving reason why I wanted to do work in Queens, was to create that kind of platform for people who don't have the time or can't afford to go to Brooklyn all the time, or go to Manhattan all the time.
I think that's really wonderful. But I want to get on your books that you've written. I mean, among the other things that she's done, I mean, she's written 2 books. One was in 2017 called Lucy Bone Scrolls, which is a book of your poetry, and your new one in 2018, Variations on Settling, Seedling. I like that title. Tell me a little bit about that and how it came to fruition. And
so my first book, Lucy's Bone Scrolls, I had written in connection with my blog. I actually went to an Afrofuturism conference in 2015.
That sounds interesting.
Thank you. It was at the New School, and it really inspired me, and so I had written a series of poems inspired by the different panels that I saw there. And then the following year, I went to an exhibition, I believe was called either Black Magic or Afro Magic, which was also an Afrofuturist exhibition. And that the paintings that were in there inspired me as well. And so I wrote poems from then. And so I posted those poems on my blog, but I didn't really know what to do with them. So the original version of Lucy's Bone Scrolls was actually a handmade book that I made.
So you were self-published.
Yeah, kind of.
That's great. You got to do what you got to do. At least you're getting your word out here and you're getting your book shown.
Yeah, so I made the book out of parchment paper, and I actually like cut out the poems and pasted it on the parchment paper, and I bounded the book together. That was the first version.
Okay, and I know you're going to read some of the poems for us, right?
Yes, I will.
I definitely want to hear some of that. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. The following year, I met my publisher, Malcolm Boyd of Three-Legged Elephant Publishing, and he was going to do a reading at Jamaica Performing Arts Center.
Right, I'm familiar.
And so he invited me to do the reading with him, and I was like, okay, sure. And then he was like, do you have a book? And I was like, no. And he's like, do you have anything you want to publish? I was like, maybe. So I was like going through like what I already had, and I realized I technically had a book already with, you know, the poems I've written before. So I put them together, and then I actually made the cover for the book. Yeah.
Oh, you did this?
Yeah, I did the cover
Very
myself.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I gave it to him, and he published it in August of last year.
And then you're also part of a publishing house now.
Yes, and that has to do with my second chapbook, actually. So I'm on the board of Harlequin Creature. It's a small press that does like handmade books and small collections of books on like things like letterpress or risograph. And so I knew Megan Forbes, who's the head of the press, and she invited me to be on the board because like we were connected together, and she saw all the things that I was doing, so she thought I'd be a good addition to the board.
That's great. We'll talk about this a little later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want you to read some of your poetry.
Definitely.
I want us to hear about it because I'm really excited. I read some of it and I really loved it. So we'll talk about that and then we'll come back later.
Great.
Okay.
This first poem is called Beloved from Lucy's Bone Scrolls. Beloved, love for us is a quiet collision, a conspiracy. We breathe together a revolution against a current state of being. We blend boundaries of becoming, float on each other's air like the interference of sound waves, like a fish's organ evolved for buoyancy, like the intersection of all the places we meet. We be atoms of your body reacting with mine. We have been broken and reordered to be bodies new, ourselves formed in the shape of home, a bond so unbreakable that we exist as one another, and there is no point that exists where you and I end. Can you see your face in me, the face of another possible? And the next poem I'm going to read is from Variations on Settling Seedling. It's called Seeds of Afar, Dustling. Bark, flowship telegram. The sky flow is falling flow. Cracked mirror flow is all flow. My reflection flow, my refraction flow. A muddy river flow, stained with flow. Shifting SETI flow, meant flow. A settling flow. Happens and separation comes flow. Strewn flow. Water, earth, fire, air flow. The elements have forgotten how flow. To come together flow, and rise out of the cave flow. Remember flow, I am too flow. A birth echo chamber flow, of every word flow. Remnants of a twisting sound mind flow. Gravel mixed into con flow. Crete flow, creator flow, griot flow. A syncretic founding of home flow. Understanding flow, under its rain flow, and yet still standing flow. I will rise flow, like a furnace's forgery flow. The loose earth con flow, geos flow, glues flow. The clay turns into green flow, towards the blues flow, and gold sun flow. Above and below flow, pan flow, smear it over flow, smite it into a new form flow, a meeting ground flow, an equal exchange flow, a bridge flow, a story of how I got over flow, what I offered flow, passing through an aperture flow, gaining an appellation flow, navigating a here flow, the application of the tail flow, the stars of a bear flow, air guided me flow, the greater shadow above covers me and sparks flow, speaks an abundance of light flow.
That was some powerful poems. I liked the second one. What gave you the inspiration for that?
So in the book, it's the poems are actually constructed in different shapes related to nature. So that poem, the word flow is actually the seed. So it's encased in parentheses as a seed throughout the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually the inspiration of the book came from when Megan from Harlequin Creature, she actually asked me to be part of her social justice subscription series that she had, and she asked me to write a series of 8 poems into a book. And I was thinking, what will I write? And so I was looking through a previous manuscript that I wrote called Lady Liberty Smashes Stones.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like these titles. I mean, where do you get these titles?
I'm good at titles, I don't know why. So I was looking through that manuscript and started pulling out words that I liked. And I started weaving it into other poems. And then I started realizing that the poems would work in different shapes. And so that's what became of the book.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Tell us a little bit about the parole board that you're working with.
It's actually the probation.
The probation, sorry, yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so A few years ago, my friend Yasmin Lancaster, who's a fellow poet, she invited me to join the workshop Freeverse, which happens at the Bronx Probation Center.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I started going on a weekly basis, and I really enjoyed it, and I felt a very family atmosphere there with everyone who's part of the workshop. And then Dave Johnson, who leads the workshop, decided he wanted to expand outside of the Bronx, and so that included Queens, and he asked me to lead.
Queens again.
Yeah, he asked me to lead the workshop in Queens, and so I started in February, and it ran till May.
Okay.
And now we're kind of on a hiatus till we get more funding, and hopefully we can start back again.
I hope so. I know that you consider yourself a literary curator.
Yes.
What are you curating now?
So, as I mentioned with J Expressions, I am currently doing the book boutique, is what I call it.
What is that?
So it's a monthly series that I'm doing at Jamaica Center for Arts and Learning, JCAL. Yeah, and so I started last month, and it's a series where I have the mobile library collection on display. People can come and read the books there. They can take notes. They can also donate books if they choose to.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I also have what I call the Jam Journal Jar.
What's that? That sounds good.
Yeah, so
cool.
the Jam Journal Jar is I was thinking of alternative ways for people to be introduced to the literary world. Not everyone is aware of like literary journals and anthologies.
Right, right.
So I have a bunch of jars at home that like I didn't know what to do with, and so I decided why not take those jars and have them on the table and ask people to submit like a short writing piece they write on the spot there into the jars.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Is it for any ages or?
Yeah, any age. Anyone can submit.
And how do they feel when they do this? They just put in a little jar and then people take it out?
They feel excited, yeah.
Oh, good, good. I think you're really inspiring to the community.
Thank
and
you.
for artists who are starting to build their portfolio, what would you suggest to them?
Well, when I was like thinking about how I wanted to be a writer, it was after college. I had just graduated, and I realized that I wanted to pursue writing as a career.
Okay.
Blogging helped me do that because it was writing on a daily basis. It helped me to exercise my skills by writing every day. So that helped me, as well as exploring around my neighborhood.
Okay.
I've lived in Queens since I was 2 years old, but there was still so much I didn't know about it. And so just like going for walks around the neighborhood, going for walks in different places, I discovered so much, and that kind of fueled my writing and helped me to expand my writing.
And Queens is such a diverse community too.
Yeah,
I mean, I've lived here all my life too, and there's just so much to see that I haven't seen yet, so it's great.
Yeah.
Well, how would you describe yourself as standing out? Like, what do you think your strong points are?
I
don't mean to be putting you on the spot now, but of course I am.
I think because I'm such a lover of language, and that helps me to stand out as a writer. One of my writing processes is looking up the origin of words. I love etymology, and it helps me to connect with other languages as well, because you realize how many words we use are from other languages. And also, like in college, I majored in music and creative writing.
Okay.
So like I originally wanted to do like music journalism. So I love music, and that kind of infuses into my writing. Yeah.
I think music is like writing. You know, you have a certain rhythm that you go through. So in writing, you have to have that rhythm to make it go. So I can see the music and the writing. That's, you know.
For me, like writing is a choreography. It's kind of dance.
Yeah, exactly. I want to ask you something. When you were talking about your fictional, the supernatural or whatever, it brought to mind Octavia Butler.
Yeah.
And was she an influence in your life? I remember her being the first black woman that wrote supernatural fiction, and I was blown away. And then I hear you talk about it. Was she an influence on you?
It wasn't until actually like a little later in college that I found out about Octavia Butler. Beforehand, I wasn't super interested in like science fiction and fantasy.
Right, science fiction, right.
Except for like in music, like there's a lot of artists who have that kind of like science fiction.
Miles Davis?
Like Sun Ra.
Okay.
Or, you know, Parliament Funkadelic is one of my favorite groups.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, or Missy Elliott is another example. Now we have Janelle Monáe. So like musically, I was interested in that, but like I felt like the science fiction or fantasy wasn't appealing to me as a woman of color. And then later in college, I found out about Octavia Butler and started reading some of her work, and it really like blew the doors open for me.
That's how I felt when I read her. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Supernatural? Yeah. So what projects are you getting into now? Like what can we look forward to? How, you know, I would like to hear more about you and your artist community. You're bringing artists together in Queens. And
yeah, so I'm definitely continuing the book boutique. It's every month. It'll be the third Friday except for July.
Okay.
I'm also going to be popping up with J Expressions on the new Parsons Plaza that opened in Jamaica. It's near the Parsons Boulevard E-train.
Yes, I'm familiar.
And so me and different members of Southeast Queens Artists Alliance will be popping up there and doing different activities. And then finally, SEQA, the Southeast Artists Alliance.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, we're going to be doing our CART Festival on September 1st.
And what's that? What's a CART Festival?
So the CART Festival, several members of the group, we have our own little like CART projects or like mobile projects.
Okay.
And so we're going to do like a day of like interactive art at King Manor Museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
For all ages?
Yep, all ages. Everyone's welcome. It's free.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are we going to find out about this? I mean, how do we follow you?
Yeah, so my web blog is futuristicallyancient.com.
Okay.
I also have a newsletter for J Expressions. It's tinyletter.com/J Expressions. That's where you can sign up for the newsletter.
Okay.
And you can find out all information about what's happening with my mobile library as well as the Southeast Queens Artists Alliance.
Well, I'm really excited, and I'm really happy that I had this time to spend with you. It's been an honor and a privilege. I mean, you're such a fascinating young woman to have accomplished this much and to be accomplishing much more, and I really honored this time that you spent with me and telling the audience about who you are and what you're about. And it's great that we have this in Queens.
Yes.
You know, like you said, we don't have that many bookstores, but we have you with your pop-up library and all these activities, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I hope you enjoyed this interview that I had with SHERESE Francis. She's a very talented young woman. And again, if you want to contact her or find out when any of her events are, try futuristicallyancient.com or tinyletter.com/J Expressions. On social media, she's at @afutureancient. And I'm Veronica Jimenez, your host. Hope to see you next time. You can hit me up on Veronica Jimenez at newconstanceandtravel.com. Until next time, see ya. Bye.
It's called Naming Ceremony, and it was inspired by me looking up the origin of my name, Sherese. So, study of Sherese. Did Dawn name me? Did my grandmother? Did cherry trees bow to my image? Did I see my mother's thirst? Was her thirst also mine? Was my name red as blood? Was my name to be like hanging fruit? Was my name to be raised of stems from a pink blossom? Was Washington's reward for truth-telling a diversion from bearing the fruits of my axed skin? Must I learn history, biography, and myth intertwine, the founding of nation and the founding of God as blur between fiction and fact? Must I learn to gain knowledge through made-up tales? Must I learn the foundation of morality or lies? Is it a paradox to invent a story about the inability to lie? Was I meant to be a P.T. Barnum sideshow attraction and raise lie into reality like a magic trick? Why did I wait so long to rediscover the small block of wood carved with the character for cherry blossom and its vessel of red ink? Is the closest translation of my name in Japanese sakura? When I told them my name means cherries, did I think of its other possible meanings? Did I know the cherry blossom symbolized the beautiful brevity, the preciousness of life? Is that why I have come to the wisdom at this moment to cherish everything because they won't last? Like the way I would when I found those blossoms again blanketing the garden of Lewis Latimer's house? Is my name the same as the principle mono no are? Did Eve know that all paradise is transient and not a parking lot? Should I accept my hometown with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot? Trees in a museum? Did you know the origin of my name is Charis, goddess of grace, the root of charity and charisma? Is my blessing to be a blessing, to marry deformity, to marry lack, and see it as a foundation of creativity and beauty, the way Charis did with Hephaestus? How did my Aunt Cindy know the meaning of my name when this was our first meeting? How did my cousin have the meaning of my name as her name? Is my name on the highest branch and I am a slow-eyed thorn sufferer for its reach? Is my name mine or part of some larger scheme? Hello. I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone involved who helped to make my World of Arts interview a success. Thank you to Marie Fernandez of Empire Productions and Veronica Jimenez, my host. You two were so helpful and supportive, and I'm grateful for the both of you. As for how working with artists in Queens has had a major impact on me, well, growing up, I was kind of a sheltered kid, very reserved. I didn't explore Queens as much as I do now. And so I was always feeling alone as an artist, as a writer, and feeling as if I lacked a community. And it wasn't until recently that I started to explore my community more and started to connect with other artists in the neighborhood that I realized how much is already here. And it was through that exploration and connecting with other artists that I developed a deeper love and reconnection with the borough of Queens. And through meeting with other artists and collaborating on different projects, I've been re-inspired when it comes to my own work, whether it's through my poetry or writing a science fiction novel that is taking place in Southeast Queens, or just expanding my own artistic practice because of all the artists that I'm meeting here. And so I'm grateful for the artists in Queens because it helped me to see the power in my own art. Thank you.